This is going to be the third lecture on the topic linear maps. Today it will be a mixture of some theory and some more examples. Okay. I just want to keep the balance so that nothing is too overwhelming for the audience. So let us get started. Yeah. So as usual, let V and W be two vector spaces over a field F, maybe R. Okay. And I am not restricting V and W to be finite dimensional. It could be anything. One can ask whether there exists any linear map at all from V to W. Okay. Of course, the answer is pretty easy. Yeah, because remember, if at all, if it's any linear map, it should map the zero vector of V to the zero vector of W. Therefore, one obvious thing will be something like what you did in continuity. Okay. The constant functions are continuous, like that you can hope constant map, right? The obvious choice will be f of x equal to 0 for all x and b. Okay, is this linear? That's very easy to check. If x and y are in b, f of x plus y will be 0, but f of x will be, I have to check f of x plus y whether equal to f of x plus f of y, right? For x, y and b, right? But x plus y is a vector in v, therefore this is also 0. This is also 0. This is also 0. 0 plus 0 is this. Therefore this is true. And similarly, scalar multiple. Therefore, this is always a linear map. Okay. This linear map is called the zero map or zero linear map. Okay. This is a trivial case. Now, can I take some other, so fix a W non-zero vector in W. If I put f of x equal to W for all x and b, will it be linear? No, because what will be above 0? It is W, which is not 0. That, okay. But if f were linear, f of 0 must be 0. Therefore, this is not linear, right? Therefore, from all the constant maps, the only map from B to W which is linear is the 0 map. Is that all clear? Okay. Later, we will see how to generate a lot more, but let us stop here. And second example, suppose my V equal to W, right? Now, do I have mapping from B to V, which is also linear? Again, the same kind of continuity. If f is from R to R, now you said about constant function, the next will be, yes, identity function, right? Therefore, define f of x equal to x. Is this linear? Okay. But the answer is again easy. What is f of x plus y? It will be x plus y. What will be fx plus f(y)? It is also x plus y, and so on. Therefore, this is linear. You understand this? F of x plus y, according to this, will be x plus y. But f of x plus f of y, that will also be x plus y. Therefore, fx plus y will be f of x plus fy. And similarly, f of tx. That will be tx, but t times fx will be t times x. Therefore, they are equal. So, this is linear. More generally, let C be any scalar. I am as usual assuming the scalar field is R. Okay. Define f of x to be C times x for all x in B. Then this is a linear. Why? F of x plus y will be C of x plus y by definition, because the vector is x plus y now. Therefore, C times the vector. But by the property of defining property of vector spaces, this is Cx plus Cy. But that is fx plus fy. And similarly, f of tx will be C times tx but this is Ct times x by defining property. But then by commutativity here, it is T times Cx Tc dot x. But again by defining property is T dot Cx, that is T dot Fx. Please go through, try to see whether you can justify the things. This is by definition of F, and this is by the defining property in the vector space. Remember that S times T times X is St times X, etc. That's what we are using, C times Ct. Okay, but then now I can use commutativity. Therefore, Tc Ct same as Tc, right? Then again use the defining property. But then what is Cx? It's Fx. Okay, spend some kind of time. If you're a beginner, this kind of example I could have given much earlier, but I wanted to give non-trivial examples. I forgot. Okay, but I hope nothing is lost. Okay, you are better off now. You will realize. So this may be called dilations. Dilate. Okay, in R2, if this is the vector, and suppose C equal to, let us say, S5, it will be pi times that. This is Cx. And C is minus 2. This will be minus 2 times x. This is your C, x. Okay, and so on. So that is why it's called dilation. And if C equal to half, it will be half the thing. But still you call it dilation. You may think it's a contraction, but you are a very generic term, one calls it a dilation. Now there is another map which are known as translations. Let us see how do they behave. So let us look at f from B to B. Fix a vector B in V. Define f at x equal to x plus b. Is it linear? Is the question. Notice that if the first thing is f is linear, f of 0 must be 0. That implies b must be 0. That's a necessary condition. You understand that? If this translation has to be linear, then v has to be 0. That's a necessary condition. But it's also sufficient. Why? If v is 0, then fx is the identity function. We have already seen it's a linear. Okay, therefore translation in general is not linear except it is translated by the 0 vector, in which case it's identity map. Do you follow that? Pause, review, and proceed. Okay, now closely related to let us f b and w be vector spaces. Okay, let f from b to w be a linear map. Okay, then there are two vector subspaces intimately related to f. Okay, there exists two vector subspaces related to V, to any linear map V. Well, how is it defined? The first thing is what is called kernel of F. Okay, this is defined to be set of all vectors x in V so that fx equal to 0. This 0 is 0 vector in W. Okay, let us look at this. Why is this a vector subspace? Okay, is it non-empty? We have to check whether 0 belong to, let me call it kernel of F. Does it belong to this? Of course, yes, because we know f of 0 is 0. Because f is linear map, f of 0 is 0, therefore this is correct. Therefore, it's non-empty. Next, if x, y belong to kernel of f, I want to know whether x plus y belong to kernel of f. When does x plus y belong to kernel of f? If f of x plus y is 0. That is same as saying whether f of x plus y equal to 0. But f is linear. What is f of x plus y? It is fx plus fy. And where do x and y belong to? They belong to the kernel. That means fx is 0, fy is 0. Therefore, this is 0 plus 0. Therefore, equal to 0 is okay. Right? Therefore, this is correct. And similarly, we can prove for t. Suppose t is in R and x is in kernel. Okay. We have to check whether tx belong to the kernel. That means whether this is 0. Yeah. But since f is linear, what is f of tx? It is t times f of x. What is t? fx, that is 0. That is t times 0. And we have already proved the fact scalar multiple of 0 vector is 0. Therefore, this is also correct. Therefore, what is the conclusion? Kernel of f is a vector subspace. Okay, this is a first fact. Okay, go through it. Before we go to the second subspace, let us just indicate the importance of this kernel. Now suppose I have linear map f from B to W, and first notice that we never needed the fact whether B and W are finite-dimensional. You understand that? Yeah. It could be finite-dimensional or infinite-dimensional. Still, kernel of f makes sense, and it's a vector subspace of B. Okay. Now let's come to VW. Suppose this is a linear map. Okay. I can ask when f is 1, 1. Okay, that's a very trivial. For all x, y in B, f x not equal to y, fx is not equal to fy. Or if for x, y in V, fx equal to fy, then we should conclude x equal to y. That is the definition of one-oneness of any function. But what we are doing is, it's a linear map, so we want to know whether we can get something extra, some better characterization of one-one map. Do you understand this? Yeah, you'll see it in a minute. Now suppose f is 1, 1. We already know f of 0 is 0. Right? What does this imply? If f is 1, 1, suppose f is 1, 1. Okay, since f of 0 is 0, now give me any vector x which is not 0, x is in V, then what do I know about fx? Can it be 0? It cannot be, because x is not equal to 0, therefore fx cannot be equal to f of 0. But what is f of 0? It is 0. Therefore, if x is not 0, fx is not equal to 0, provided f is 1, 1. So a necessary condition, therefore, f is 1, 1 implies, okay, what does it say? Kernel of f consists of only one element. You understand that? Why? Because if x is in the kernel, what does it mean? F of x equal to 0. But since f is 1, 1, that means x is 0. You understand? Therefore, if f is 1, 1, of course, remember it's only in the linear case. If f is linear and 1, 1, then kernel of f is 0. Therefore, it's a necessary condition. We claim it's also sufficient. What does that mean? That means kernel of f equal to 0. I want to know whether it implies f is 1, 1. But that's again easy. Why? You give me x and y in V such that fx equal to fy. What is that I have to check? Whether I can conclude x equal to y. Right? Now fx equal to fy. Now remember, that means fx minus fy is 0. Right? Okay. But what is fx minus fy? Since f is linear, fx minus fy is, remember this I can write as fx minus 1 times fy. Remember what is the meaning of this? Okay, don't just assume this. We have proved the earlier thing. If I have vectors, let me just get a digression, because if you're a beginning student, you might have forgotten what you did in the vector space case. If I have two vectors v and w in a vector space, then minus w denotes the additive inverse of w. What does that mean? That is the vector said that this is equal to 0. You understand that? Okay, this is just a vector. There is no symbol. Okay, this is just a symbol. Okay, right. That's a unique vector. If you want, call it u, so that w plus u equal to 0. That u we denote by minus w. Do you recall we have done all these things? Right. And we also said by convention, what is v minus w? This by definition is v plus take the additive inverse of w and add. The sum of these two vectors is what we denote by this. Do you understand this? Okay. Now come back to this. Okay, please review if necessary this point. Now come back to this. This therefore it is fx plus of minus fy, right? And remember, we also proved, we given a vector w, how do I get its additive inverse? We said that is same as minus 1 times w, where minus 1 is a scalar, and therefore this is a scalar multiple of w, where the scalar being minus w. Then we proved that this is the additive inverse. These are the things we proved. So I can use this here. Therefore it is going to be fx as I did, okay, plus minus 1 times fx. You understand this? But this I can write it 1 times fx. Therefore it is 1 minus 1 times fx, but that is 0 times fx, that is equal to 0. Okay, I suggest you go through it again, because people simply manipulate symbols without trying to see we are using some facts which are already established. This is non-trivial. Okay, let me look at fx minus fy is 0. This implies fx, this is 1 times fx plus minus 1 times fx is 0. That fx is common, therefore it's 1 plus minus 1 times fx is 0. This is 0 times fx. Now we have proved 0 times any vector is 0. Okay, very good. That's fine, but why I wanted all these things, you should remember. Okay, therefore this is fx plus, okay, minus 1 times f of y, but this I can write as fx plus f of minus 1 times y. This is a scalar. You understand that? Yeah. Therefore, what does it mean? This is fx, but what is minus 1 times y? That is f of minus y, the additive inverse. Now f is linear. What is this? Fx minus y. You understand? But this is equal to 0. Right? That means x minus y belong to the kernel. But what is my assumption about the kernel? Kernel of f is 0, singleton. If you want, you can write singleton like this at 0. Okay, this implies x minus y is 0 or x equal to y. Okay, so p or p. Go through this. Please go through this idea how we got it. Okay, so what did I establish on the way is the following. F of minus x is minus fx. You should understand what this means. This is the additive inverse of x in V and its image, and this is additive inverse of the fx in W. Okay, these two vectors are equal. That is what we proved there. Therefore fx minus fy is fx plus f of minus y, but f is linear. In particular, it respects addition. Therefore f of x minus y. If I know this is 0, this is 0. Therefore x minus y belong to kernel. That implies x minus y is 0. That implies x equal to y. Okay, right. Now there is a second thing. Yeah, the next second vector subspace. So let's go back. F is from V to W, linear map, and V and W may be any dimension, I don't care. Then we want to define what is called image of F. Okay, just a digression. If F is a function from X to Y, what is image of F? It is a subset of Y. Loosely, teachers will say correct all the images of X as images Fx as X varies over X, right? But a very proper way would be to define it as a subset of Y. So it is set of all Y in Y. When does Y belong to the subset image F? If there exists an X in X, such that Y equal to Fx. Notice that it's the same. This simply says collection of all the images. Here it says when it's a set builder form, when an element little y of capital Y lies in the image. If you can find an X. Usually in BSc teachers will say if there is a pre-image. Y belong to this image of F if there is a pre-image X for Y. Right? Therefore, this is by definition set of all W in W, or let us say Y in W, so that there exists X in V, so that Y equal to Fx. Now we want to claim this is a vector subspace of W. Okay, this is also called range of F. Okay, now let us prove that this is a vector subspace. First, does 0 belong to the image of F? What is this 0? This is supposed to be vector subspace of W. Therefore, this 0 is the 0 vector in W. Okay, yeah. But that is clear. Why? Because if I take the 0 vector in V, F of 0 is the 0, 0 vector in W. Therefore, what does it mean? The 0 vector of W is an element of image of F. Because I have found a pre-image, namely it is F of 0V is 0W. Okay, I read. Next, suppose Y1 and Y2 belong to image of F. I have to check whether it's a vector subspace, therefore I have to check whether it is closed under addition. That what does that mean? Whether Y1 plus Y2 is also in the image of F. Now since Y1 belongs to image of F, I know there is X1, and since Y2 belongs to image of F, there is X2 in V with what? Yi equal to F of Xi. I equal to 1 and 2. You clear? Therefore, what is Y1 plus Y2? Y1, see, there may be many more X1 and X2. I don't care. There may be more than one X1, so that Fx1 equal to Y1. But that does not matter. Take at least one X1. That's good enough for us. Therefore, it is Fx1 plus Fx2. But what do I know about F? F is linear. Therefore, what will I do? I will write it as F of X1 plus X2. But then what do I know about X1 and X2? They are in V. Therefore, X1 plus X2 is also in V. Therefore, these are the form Fx where X equal to X1 plus X2. So, I have found an X in V such that Fx equal to Y1 plus Y2. That means this is in the image of F. Okay. And similarly, scalar multiple. Suppose T is a scalar, Y is an image of F. Okay. Then I want to know whether Ty also belong to image of F. Right. Now, since Y belong to X, there is an X where in V. With what property? Y equal to Fx. Right. What is Ty then? Ty is T times Fx. Yeah. Right. But F is linear. Therefore, what can I do? I can slip in the T inside the argument. Therefore, it is F times Tx. Now, X is a vector in V. T times X is also a vector in V. Therefore, this shows this is an image of W. Okay. Therefore, what we have shown is image of F is a vector subspace of W. Okay. Notice that F is a linear map from V to W. Kernel of F is a vector subspace of V, whereas image of F is a vector subspace of W. You understand that? So they are somewhat and live in different spaces. But you will see later in the so-called rank nullity theorem, we will see, okay, something very interesting. Okay, these two things are very important because the dimension of V is nothing other than dimension of kernel of F plus dimension of image of F. We will see that this is rank nullity theorem, but for the time being you can ignore. But what all I wanted to say is, even though they live in different vector spaces, but they give us a very interesting relation. Okay, they enjoy a very interesting relation. Okay, right. Now let us look at one more example. Now I'll go back to example. Do you remember we have defined something like vector sum, right? If v1, v2 are vector spaces, we have defined direct sum of vector spaces v1 plus v2. Or similarly, we have defined w1 direct sum w2, where wi are vector subspaces of v. This we call internal direct sum, this we call external direct sum. Okay. For the time being, I will also call this as v1 so that it depends upon how you got it. Okay. This is different, this is different. Okay. But the map I want to define is the same, so I want to do that. I want to define what is called a projection map. Okay. Remember, v1, v2, the underlying set is a direct product, Cartesian product of these two spaces. Right. So I have a natural map phi 1, okay, of this. So recall, when I say V is direct sum of v1 plus v2, what does it mean? Give me any vector in x in V, then there exists a unique y and unique z, y in v1, z in v2, so that x equal to y plus z. So I define phi of x equal to y. That's it. Therefore, phi is a linear map from V to v1. And similarly, it's a direct sum. That means any vector x will be written as y plus z uniquely. Therefore, I define phi of x equal to y. They look similar. There is no problem. Okay. Right. Now, why there is one subtle point why this is well defined. The map phi, phi is a map, which is same as saying is phi a map or a function. What is the meaning of this question? Remember, when you say f from x to y is a function or a map, what does it mean? For each x here, you have a unique y. Okay, so that x corresponds to y. The f is a rule assignment, so that for each x in x, you okay, this x is associated to a unique y in y. Then you denote this y as f of x. That's the definition of your function. You understand? So I have to make sure. So when I get x, I am associating to y. Why I want to talk about uniqueness is the following. If you write x equal to y1 plus z1, then phi of x may be y1. But notice that if it's a direct sum, then y1 must be y, z1 must be z. Therefore, phi of x will be always y. You understand? It's one usually calls it a well-defined. It's a map or it's a function. Is that clear? So I claim pi is linear. I'll prove one case. The other thing is exactly similar. Suppose I write x1 equal to y1 plus z1 and x2 equal to y2 plus z2. Then x2 will be equal to y1 plus z1 plus y2 plus z2. Yeah, maybe I should have been a little more careful here. I'm sorry for this goof. Okay, I should have been a little more careful. Let me go back. So suppose V is external direct sum V1 V2, that okay, even though we call it V1 direct sum V2, okay, then pi is a map from V to V1. Notice that any vector x in V is of the form ordered per y comma z in V1 cross V2, right? Therefore pi of x equal to y. Okay, this is a well defined, right? Are you following? Because anything is an ordered pair here. Okay, you understand? Therefore this is well defined. Now suppose I have two vectors x1 and x2, then x1 will be y1 z1, x2 will be y2 z2. They are vectors in v1 cross v2. Now what is the definition of x1 plus x2? Remember, the sum in the direct sum, external direct sum, is y1 plus y2 and z1 plus z2. That is the definition of sum, right? Therefore what is pi of x1 plus x2? This is y1 plus y2. But what is y1? It is pi of x1. And what is y2? Pi of x2. Therefore pi respects addition. Similarly, pi respects scalar multiplication, because pi of tx will be, right? What will be pi of tx? If x is, remember, if x equal to yz in the external direct sum, tx is ty tz. Do you remember this? This is how we define. We define the scalar multiplication this way. Therefore, pi of tx will be ty, but that is t times f of x. Sorry, pi of x. Okay. Therefore, pi is linear. This is called, pi is called the projection of v onto its first factor, onto the first factor v1. Okay. With respect to internal direct sum, that's what I was doing actually earlier. Suppose v equal to v1 direct sum v2, where v1 v2 are vector subspace of v. Then what did we know? Any vector x will be written as unique sum of y and z, y and v1, z and v2. Therefore, if I have x1 and y1, it will be y2 plus z2. Therefore, x1 plus x2, because these are equal, the right side also equal, therefore y1 plus z1 plus y2 plus z2. But remember, all these things are happening in V. Therefore, I can use commutativity and associativity available in V. Therefore, I can rearrange the term to write it as y1 plus y2 plus z1 plus z2. You follow that? Okay. Now suppose my x1 plus x2 equal to y dash plus z dash. That's all I know. This is a vector in V. Therefore, it will be sum of two vectors, y dash in V1, z dash in V2. But notice that, say x1 plus x2, I had already written y1 plus y2 plus z1 plus z2. And this is in V1, this is in V2. And this is a direct sum. Since it's a direct sum, so I wrote this vector as a sum of two different way. That means y1 plus y2 must be equal to y dash, and z1 plus z2 equal to z dash. Do you follow what I mean? So if x1 plus x2 equal to y dash plus z dash, then y of x1 plus x2 will be y dash. But I claim this y dash is nothing other than y1 plus y2. And hence it is nothing other than pi of x1 plus pi of x2. You understand this? Because x1 plus x2 I already wrote as y1 plus y2 plus z1 plus z2, but you said it is of the form y dash plus z dash. Since this is a direct sum, the v1 component and the v2 component must be equal, right? The v1 components must be equal, v2 components must be equal. That means y1 plus z1, sorry, y1 plus y2 must be equal to y dash. z1 plus z2 must be z dash, right? Therefore, y dash must be y1 plus y2, but y1 is pi of x1, etc. Okay, so we are similarly scalar multiple, you can prove that. Therefore, pi is again linear, and this is also called projection of v, okay, onto v1 and relative to v2. Okay, don't get confused, because this one we wrote it with respect to what is the vector, other vector subspace v2. This projection depends upon v2 also. Okay, we will see it in another later example, but don't worry about it at present. Okay, now let's look at some example. Okay, remember, if I have a matrix of the type, let us say n cross m, I said I can think of it as a linear map from R m to Rn, where I think of this as column vectors. Namely, the column vector x goes to a dot x. This is n cross m, and m cross 1, that will give me n cross 1. We had already seen this, right? Okay. We had also seen it also gives right to another linear map. What is the other linear map? That is from Rn row vectors to Rm row vectors. That is, suppose now instead of x, let me use something else. Okay, u equal to u1 to un. Then u dot a, this will be 1 cross n, and this will be n cross m. Therefore, that will be 1 cross m. That will be a row vector. You understand that? So the same A gives rise to two linear maps. Okay, call them of F. Another one is call them as G. Right? So yeah, matrix A in n cross m, okay, gives rise to two linear maps. One linear map is F from the column vectors Rmc to column vectors Rnc, and the other map is row vectors Rnr to Rmr. Notice the dimensions are going the other way around. Okay, you follow this? Yeah. Okay. Now what I want to do is I want to give a geometric way of looking at matrices, which I find to be very useful, and most of the time without computation you will be able to say what you want, or you will be able to see what you want, or you will be able to prove what you want without too much of a computation. Okay, let us go slow. Let us look at F. Okay, A is in n cross m. Okay, F is the associated map, therefore F is from R MC to RNC, right? What I want to know, what is, see, let us look at the standard basic vectors of RMC, that is E1 equal to 1, 0, 0, 0, this is a M vector, and EI equal to 0, 0, 1, 0, this is the ith, and this is 1 cross M, right? I want to know what is F of E1. This is A times E1. So write A as A11, A12, A1. And so how many columns? M columns. A21, A22, A2, yeah, and n1, a n2, a nm, right? This acting on 1 0 0 0. Okay, so what will I get? You will see that is nothing other than this with this. Notice that this is something like a dot product. This is m vector, this is also m vector, therefore a11 times 1, a12 times 0, etc. Therefore I will get a11. And similarly second, this will be a21 and this will be an1. You see that? Therefore a of e1 is the first column vector, this of the matrix. Okay, this is the first column vector of a. So, and what will be a of ei? A of ei will be the same thing, whereas I will have 1 at the ith place. This is ith place. Therefore, what will I do? When I multiply this, it will pick up only a1i, a2i, ani. You understand that? Therefore, it picks the ith column. So, this gives me an idea. That is, I don't think of a matrix A as an array of numbers, n cross m array of numbers. I think of them as column vectors. What is a column vector? The first column is the image of the basic vector e1. Okay, in this space, a of e1 is this, a of e2 is this, a of en is this nth column vector. Okay, please pause, review, proceed. Okay, therefore the geometric or dynamic way of looking at a matrix. Assume n cross m. Okay, is as column c1 to cm. Okay, where when it consider a as a linear map from r mc to rnc as a column vector, then first column is a of e1, mth column is a of em, where e1 to em is the standard basis vectors of rmc. Okay, so I can think of a matrix as m column vectors and they have a meaning for me. It's not just an array of numbers. And the same way I can do with respect to rows. There is a counterpart. What is the counterpart? Now let us look at G, the linear map from Rn R to Rm R. So how is it given? G of u equal to u times a. This is a row vector. This is a row vector n cross 1. This is a thing. This is, sorry, 1 cross n and this is n cross m. Therefore I will get 1 cross m. Yeah, okay. Now let us look at the first basic vector e1. I'm again denoting by e1. Okay, if you want to call it u1. Okay, that is 1 0 0 0. This is the first basic vector of Rn and this is in Rn, n tube. Therefore this acting on a11, a12, a1 m and an1, an2, an m and ai1, ai2, aim. Okay, this one will be, I have to take this with the first, that will mean a11, and this with the second column will be a12, and this with the last column will be a1m. So what is this? This is the first row. And similarly, if I take the ith thing, 0 0 1 0, this is the ith place, acting on this will be first, in the first column will pick me only the ai1, and this with the second column will give me only ai2, and this, sorry, this with the last column will give me aim. So this is the ith row. So again, the matrix A, which is of this type n cross m, okay, I can think of this as now rows vectors R1, R2, Rn, and these are rows now. Okay, and what is Rj? Rj is nothing other than the image of Uj, that is the standard jth basic vector, basic vector at under A. That means Rj is nothing other than Uj times A. So I can again think of any matrix. If I want to concentrate on the rows, so what should I think of? Each row, again geometric or dynamic form. Dynamic means it something happens, so you get something else. So how do I get R1? Let A act on the basic vector. Which way? It acts on the right now. That is Uj intersection A. Not Uj intersection, U1 dot A. U1 acting on A or A acting on U1 on the right, that will give me R1. And when it acts on U2, that will give me R2. When it acts on UN, it will give me Rn. So this is again a dynamic way of looking at. So I will wind it up with one important thing. Okay. So this is something to suppose I have a matrix A. Let us again write it as A11, A1M, A21, A2M, AN1, ANM. Okay, this is an n cross m. Since I started with that, I'm just sticking to that. Okay, don't worry about that. Or if you want to assume that A1, and if you're comfortable with this is AM1, AMN. Okay, this M cross n matrix. Okay, right. Now notice that this I can write as C1, C2, Cn, where each Ci, where does it belong to? That's a column. And there are how many things? M. Therefore, it is in RMC. It's a column vector. Or I can think of this as a row. In that case, I will write as R1, R2, and RM. Okay. And whereas RI, R is a row vector, therefore it is in RNR. It's a row vector. Do you follow that? Okay. So what we want to do is the following. So let us look at these vectors. See these vectors Ci, Rn, Rmc for 1 less than or equal to I less than or equal to n. And these vectors Ri are row vectors here. Now what I can do is I can look at the linear span of Ci 1 less than or equal to I less than or equal to n. So this is going to be a vector subspace of Rmc. And similarly, I can look at the linear span of Rj. This is going to be a vector subspace of Rn R. Yeah, very good. Okay. So this vector subspace is called columns space. Column subspace of A. What will this be called? Row space of the matrix A. And notice that this is a vector subspace. It lives in a RMC, that is the m-dimensional column space. Whereas this row space lives in Rn, which is a space of row vectors. So they live in very, very different spaces. Do you understand this? They are not vector subspaces of the same vector space. This is a vector subspace of RMC, whereas this is a vector subspace of RnR. They are very, very distinct. But the surprising thing is their dimension are equal. This is what the common dimension is called. This dimension is called column rank of A. This dimension is called row rank of A. And the theorem is these two ranks are the same, and therefore that is called the common number is called the rank of the matrix A. But what is surprising, okay, is this column space is where it lives in is a vector subspace of here, and row space is a vector subspace of here. They are very, very distinct spaces, but the dimensions match. Okay, so for this, please look in for a proof of this statement. Okay, go to my video on the rank of a matrix or matrix rank. There is a video on matrix rank, you can see this. But let's stop this lecture with a very simple minded example. Okay, let my matrix A to be 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 0. So see 0, 1, 0. This is 1, 1, 0. This is 1 and 1. And this is 0. This is minus 1. And this is 1. See what I did, you can see. I wrote the first column 101, second 110. Then I added the first two columns to get the third column, right? Therefore, C1, C2 I have, C3 is C1 plus C2. And what is C4? 1 minus 1 is 0, 0 minus 1 is minus 1, 1 minus 0 is 1. Therefore, there is C1 minus C2, right? Therefore, the linear span of C1, C2, C3, C4 is same as the linear span of C1 and C2. And notice that C1 and C2 are linearly dependent. They are linearly dependent. Sorry, linearly independent. Okay, these are linearly independent because two vectors, when are they linearly dependent? One must be scalar multiple of the other. That means this vector must be lambda times this. But you see here, when I multiply this by lambda, I will get lambda 0. But then this must be lambda must be 0. But then this must be lambda 0, but that must be equal to 1. That's a contradiction, right? And so on. That's it. By now you should be very confident about such thing. Therefore, this is linearly independent. Therefore, what is the dimension of the column space? 2, right? Because this is right. So column space is spanned by these two vectors. In the standard notation, what is this? Therefore, column space is spanned by the C1, which is E1 plus E3, and C2, which is E1 plus E2, where in R3 column, right? So it's spanned by these two vectors. Now let's look at row space. What is row space? So this is 1, 1, 0. Therefore, R1 row space is a linear span of R1, R2, R3. There are only 3 rows. You understand that? But where do they live? They live in R4 row. Each row has 4 coordinates. You see that? Therefore, they live in R4, whereas columns lived in R3. Okay. Now you see a pattern here. See that? If you look at carefully, you know that R1 minus R2 is 1. 1 minus 1 is 0. 2 minus 1 is 1. 0 minus of minus 1 is plus 1. Therefore, okay, R3 is nothing as in R1 minus R2. Therefore, this linear span is same as linear span of R1 and R2. And again, on R1 and R2 are linearly independent. R1 and R2 are linearly independent. They are linearly independent. Why? Again, the same thing. If this equal to lambda times a second, then it will be 1 must be lambda times 0. That cannot happen. That means, you understand that? Lambda times 0 will be lambda 0. Therefore, it cannot happen. Or other way around. If this has to be this, then minus lambda times this must be 0. Okay. So they are linearly independent. Therefore, dimension of row space is also 2. Okay. Now in terms of this, you know how to write down R1. This is U1 plus U2 plus 2 times E2 and the second row vector is u2 plus u3 minus u4, right, where u1, u2, u4 are standard basic vectors. So let us assume standard row basic vectors of R4R. Then what is my R1? R1 is u1 plus u2 plus u2 u3, u1 plus u2 plus 2 u3, and R2 is u2 u2 plus u3 minus u4. Yeah, okay. So this way also you can see they are linearly independent. So what we have done is we have verified this theorem, that is column rank and row rank, that they live in different spaces but their dimensions are equal. Okay, please go through this and follow it up with, okay, view the video on matrix rank or rank of matrix. I don't know exactly the title of the thing in my channel. Okay, I think that's about it for today. I hope all of you enjoyed. Yeah, please go through this. There are a lot of very easy things which I did, and do not lose heart. If you are a second year BSc student, some of the things may be slightly tougher for you. Okay, but do not lose heart. Again, view it. If necessary, have a friend with you. Discuss whenever there is a difficulty. Pause the video, go through the material, and discuss. You will see that you will begin to appreciate linear algebra, and you will be master of it soon. Okay, the days are not far away. Okay, enjoy. Have a good day. Bye.